Everybody, welcome to SI Now. Come on in. It's Wednesday, February the 22nd. I'm Matt Stryker.
Come in, gather around.
Please.
I'm Maggie Gray. Rohan Nadkami is here. We're going to get to a lot of things on today's episode.
Quite a bit to talk about. Today we move all around the sports world, from Go Time in UFC to a little bit of infighting in MLB to Showtime being back in the NBA. So, Mags, let's get to it.
All right, it was reminiscent of a bloodless coup. Just 3 days before the NBA's trade deadline, Jeanie Buss assumed her position on the throne of the LA Lakers, ousting longtime Lakers general manager Mitch Kupchak and even her own brother, Jim Buss. Jeanie has retaken control of the NBA's crown jewel.
This was a very difficult decision. It was probably so hard for me to make that I probably waited too long. And for that, I apologize to Laker fans. But now with clarity and direction and after talking with Irvin, really knowing that a change was needed, and that's why we're here today.
Man, forget the Lakers. Have her run for office. Jeanie Buss, Rohan, now has Magic Johnson running the point as president of basketball operations. How confident are you that Magic can turn this team around?
It doesn't really come down to Magic, to be honest. I don't have a lot of confidence in him. Obviously, most of what we know about Magic these days are his silly tweets, to be honest. It's going to come down to if he can put the right people in place around him to help him make the decisions. I mean, is Magic Johnson a salary cap expert? Is he going to be willing to, scout college players and travel the country and do all the things required of that job? We were discussing, Ryan West, Jerry West's son. He has an elevated role in the front office now. They're going to need people like him, people who've been in a front office for a long time, who are used to scouting and managing the cap to kind of help them fill in the gaps.
Okay, I love this, actually. I'm in the minority here, I think, because I think that you're right. You want Magic Johnson to come in to put all the right pieces in place. This is a guy, yes, who does silly tweets. He's become a billionaire businessman, I think, by creating good cultures within his companies. I mean, I think this is someone who has a long view of the organization, someone who understands his place in Laker legendary is totally cemented and set. But I think his business acumen in terms of culture and putting people in places to succeed, I think this might work. I think you keep him away from the salary cap and some of the draft prospects and stuff.
Yeah, without a doubt. I agree that, there's certainly sort of having a figurehead, right? And someone who can maybe, talk to players, talk to free agents, something like that. But you look at kind of the successful franchises in the NBA right now, they're not necessarily run by players. They're run, David Griffin with the Cavaliers, Bob Myers with the Warriors. These are all people who are kind of embracing the modern style of NBA management, that's analytics. And with the new CBA especially, it's going to create new challenges, in terms of attracting superstars, which is what Los Angeles has always been about. So, and it's not an easy rebuild for the Lakers. They don't have an obvious superstar in place right now, so it's complicated. And I think his place in Laker history works against him a little bit. I think you need an outsider in the situation. I think you need someone who's not going to look at the Lakers with rose-colored glasses. So they're running this.
He's been critical of them, though, in the past, to a point.
Hold on a second. You get a young kid that comes in and sits across the negotiating table from Magic Johnson. I think young players and even veteran players now are going to want to come and play at the Staples Center because of what Magic means to the culture of the Lakers.
Yes and no. I agree with that to an extent, but you've also looked at the trouble they've had with free agents throughout this decade, and that Laker allure is what we talk about every summer, right? And then no one wants to sign there. And I think that what they need to realize is this isn't one of the NBA's marquee franchises right now. It's not a top destination, and they need to run it like a rebuild. And they're not doing that. And I think they're looking at the past and thinking, oh, we just need to swing that one big move and we're right back in it, and it's not that simple.
See, I wonder, though, if they are actually looking at building through this young core. I mean, I think the reason you get, Kupchak, listen, you're a general manager for almost 20 years. You're going to have hits. You're going to have misses. Jim Buss, in terms of his partnership with Kupchak, more misses than hits. And I think that has a lot to do with why you weren't able to get a meeting with Kevin Durant, why you couldn't lure some of these big-time, these big-time free agents to even give you a shot. But I think they can clean a lot of that up. I mean, Mozgov, Luol Deng, these are just bad contracts. The Kobe contract was bad. I think this is a new era. This is not that same regime who was giving out some of those really, really bad, intense contracts. Speaking of Kobe, they're saying that they might want him back in the front office in some way. Player development, which I never thought was actually Kobe's strong suit. He was in the Kobe development business, not the player development business. What role could he play?
I don't think it hurts to have someone like Kobe around as kind of like a special advisor in the old role that Magic Johnson used to be in. Another thing with Kobe, though, I mean, no one wanted to play with him his last few years in the NBA. I think he has an appeal with an older generation of superstars, you know, the LeBrons and Dwayne Wades. I think the new guys coming up, maybe it's not as much with Kobe, and I don't know how much he could really help. I mean, we've heard so many stories as Kobe's a teammate, and it sounds like, you know, it sounds like he tried, but it didn't. It's nothing that ever came natural to him. So, you know, Magic, again, it's just looking to the past. They want to look at, you know, Kobe was a winner, I was a winner. Magic and Kobe were winners because they were great players, and that's what the Lakers need, you know, more so than anything else.
Yeah, you make good points about the future, and Magic wasted absolutely no time addressing the Laker nation, and he had a request for the Laker faithful. He said that when I think about the Lakers and where we are today, I know it's going to take some time. It's going to take 3 to 5 years to get them back rolling again. So my question to you, the Lakers make a deal, they send Lou Williams, they get a first-round draft pick back. They also are a potential lottery team in a very deep draft. So how long will it take for this team to be competitive?
Well, first of all, I just want to say about Magic's quote, I've never heard a GM come and say, hey, we're going to get this thing rolling in 1 year. You know, no one ever says, oh, you know, give me a couple months.
Yeah, give me 6 months. We'll be contending for a time.
So I do think it's going to take them a little while. I mean, looking at their roster right now, I think D'Angelo Russell's a solid piece, but, you know, he hasn't proven that he's going to be necessarily the franchise-lifting player. Julius Randle's another good guy. It just depends the route they want to go. I do think it was a good move getting Jeanie Buss out of there. We talked about this Cousins move. Apparently that kind of greased the wheels for what's happening in Los Angeles right now. It depends what route the Lakers want to take, right? I'm kind of surprised they didn't get Cousins considering how low his price was. So I think it's going to take a while because I don't imagine they're going to, A, lure a bunch of free agents, B, the way the CBA is set up right now, it's going to restrict those superstar movement, those big moves the Lakers have kind of counted on in their franchise history. So it's going to take some time. They're going to have to be willing to build through the draft and make smart free agent signings, which at least the previous regime didn't prove that they could do.
That's really kind of you to say that the Lakers are a potential lottery team. They could have finished with the worst record in the NBA. They could have the #1 pick
Look at the bottom of the West. I mean, there's a massive teams that are right in that area. Six-game winning streak, and they're up in the 8th seed.
Well, they just traded away their leading scorer in Lou Williams. He's going to Houston.
What they want to do.
So let's look at that side of things. Obviously, Houston, 3rd best record in the Western Conference. James Harden, front runner, one of them for MVP this year. Does Lou Williams change their expectations moving forward?
I don't know if he necessarily raises their ceiling to a large degree. Having said that, I mean, he fits in that system a little bit better than Corey Brewer. I personally really enjoy watching Corey Brewer play. Just a fun guy, athletic guy, but you know, Lou Williams has that outside shooting, kind of that bombs away mentality that really works in Houston. And I think what it'll help is hopefully keep James Harden a little more fresh as we head to the playoffs. I mean, lighten the scoring burden a little bit during the regular season. You know, Lou Williams always never been afraid to shoot, can create his own shot. You know, guys like him and Eric Gordon can hopefully kind of lighten the scoring load, you know, down the stretch. And I think that'll help more than anything. But he doesn't dramatically change their ceiling. Having said all that, Lou Williams has been outstanding this season, and he's kind of gotten lost in the Lakers' awfulness, but he's really had just kind of a career year in many regards, and playing defense probably better than he's ever been. So I'm happy to see Lou Williams playing for a contender.
Yeah, listen, playing for a contract too, and a guy who has playoff experience. We forget about those teams in Philadelphia under Doug Williams. He knows what it's like to be in the postseason. Rohan Nadkami, thank you so much for breaking down everything.
Of course, thank you guys so much
Lakers
for having
and
me.
Rockets, and we can barely go a day without hearing about Floyd Mayweather and Conor McGregor and their super fight. And that isn't sitting well with some of the stars from the boxing world. Tuesday, Hall of Fame boxer Oscar De La Hoya stopped by our studio along with Mexican champion Canelo Alvarez. And I asked them about the potential for a crossover bout.
Floyd is talking about McGregor and this and that. That'll never happen. I mean, the UFC will never allow it. I mean, it just will not happen. But if Floyd wants to have a big fight, a huge fight, the only guy that he can fight is Canelo Alvarez. And guaranteed you, I believe in my heart of hearts that Canelo will probably beat him easy, maybe even knock him out.
What makes you so sure that a McGregor-Mayweather fight will not happen? You're a promoter. You know how much money would be potentially on the line here. Why do you think that will not?
Well, because why would the UFC that just got bought for $4 billion, why would they let their biggest star McGregor go up in the ring, just straight boxing. I mean, Mayweather would probably outclass him. It'll be a boring boxing match. Easy as that. Why would the UFC allow that?
So if someone came to you and said, I'll pay you $100 million to fight a mixed martial artist like Conor McGregor, would you turn it down?
Sería una ofensa para mis fans. No lo haría.
It would be offensive to his fans, and he wouldn't do it.
For more on this, we now welcome in Damon Martin, UFC writer for Fox Sports. Damon, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
All right, well, in your opinion, how valid are De La Hoya's statements? In the end, is the possibility of McGregor versus Mayweather simply a pipe dream, or is there a chance this could happen?
I think there's absolutely a chance it happens. From everyone I've talked to, all of my sources, I mean, everybody wants it. And when you have two sides, two very powerful sides who both want something to happen, they can kind of will it into existence. So as crazy as it may sound that Floyd Mayweather would have his comeback fight out of retirement against a mixed martial artist with 0 fights in boxing, and Conor McGregor, the biggest star in the history of the sport of mixed martial arts, would suddenly switch over to boxing and face, you know, the biggest star from there in a boxing match that really logistically makes no sense on paper, but both guys want it to happen. Both camps want it to happen. And so ultimately, I think they kind of will it into existence. So, yes, it absolutely can happen. And as of right now, I would say there's a good chance it does happen.
It's interesting because De La Hoya is a promoter himself. He does not think that there's any way the UFC signs off on this. I mean, Damon, does he have a point?
Possibly, but I don't think so ultimately for a couple of reasons. One, the UFC doesn't really risk a lot in this. And yes, you know, technically Floyd Mayweather could outclass Conor McGregor for 12 rounds, but the odds makers have already said that Floyd Mayweather would be like a 25-1 favorite because he is such a phenomenal boxer. And ultimately, you know, Conor is 0-0 as a boxer in his career, and that's a tall task to tackle. But, you know, again, Conor, you know, the downside is very low because Floyd is not a knockout striker. He's not a Triple G, a guy that's going to go in there, could potentially knock out Conor McGregor in the first round or second round, or one of those kind of crazy, embarrassing moments like what happened with James Toney when he tried to cross over and fight in mixed martial arts where, you know, it lasted less than a round, and it was just kind of like, okay, it happened the way we thought it would happen. Conor could go 12 rounds with Floyd Mayweather because Floyd Mayweather's not really a knockout puncher. And guess what? If Conor wins a round, if Conor wins 2 rounds, 3 rounds, he lands one big shot that kind of rattles Floyd even for a second. Those are all things that they can hold up and applaud and say, look what he did against arguably one of the greatest boxers of all time in his first boxing match. So I don't think there's a lot of lose-lose for the UFC, and ultimately the UFC will make some money because they will sign off. If they sign off and allow Conor to do this, they're going to get a chunk of the pay-per-view. I don't know how big that will be. I don't know how much they would be involved in the promotion side of this pay-per-view if it happens, but that's an easy paycheck. They're going to make as much off of Floyd and Conor in one fight than they probably will a couple of pay-per-views combined, or more than that, honestly, in this entire year.
Yeah, and you should mention that Floyd, not necessarily a knockout puncher. His last came in 2011 against Victor Ortiz. All right, we have to move on because we want to get your thoughts on another very interesting development. It was reported last week that Georges St-Pierre has returned to the UFC. Now, his coach Damon hinted that GSP wants a showdown with who else? Conor McGregor. Is he the only fighter in the stable of UFC? I mean, is the well so dry that everyone wants the Irishman?
Well, everyone knows Conor is the money fight. You know, Conor spoke for such a long time about the money fight, and he's the money fight. And now he's proving it because everyone wants to fight him because they know when you're a fighter who's going to get a percentage of pay-per-view on the back end of any of your fights, and Georges St-Pierre is clearly one of those guys, he's going to make more from fighting Conor McGregor than he would anybody else in the UFC. So, you know, does it make sense for him to fight Conor McGregor? Absolutely not. Georges St-Pierre has never fought at 155 pounds, and if you ask Conor to go up to 170, we've already seen he's not a welterweight. He's not that big, and, you know, for all the bluster and all the talk that Dana White has said about how big Nate Diaz was in their fights, Nate Diaz is not a welterweight either. Nate Diaz is a lightweight. So Conor, if the fight happens, it would have to take place at lightweight. Georges St-Pierre said he could do it. But I still don't necessarily buy it. But that's ultimately what it comes down to. The paycheck is going to be that much bigger, and it's not even a little bit bigger. It's significantly bigger to where it makes sense for the biggest superstars to consistently ask for a fight with Conor, even if they don't get it.
Damon Martin is senior UFC writer for Fox Sports. We appreciate your perspective, Damon, as always. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Matt, as you well know, the Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue is on newsstands now. Last week, we sat down with the cover model herself, Kate Upton, to discuss her upcoming wedding to Cy Young winner Justin Verlander and just what is her reaction when she's asked to wear a barely there bikini. That I had seen the world's smallest bathing suit when you did your first cover in 2012. And then I saw this. When someone approaches you, like the mastermind MJ Day, who puts together this entire magazine and says, I want you to wear this. This is dental floss. What do you say to this?
I think that's what I said. I think that's what everyone on set said.
What was it like between that 2012 cover, which was a very small bikini, and this one? Was it the same, different, similar feeling? Are you a different person now than when you were in 2012 posing for the cover?
I guess I look at my body differently now. Like in 2012, it was also like, I didn't know these people, anyone on set, and I'm in Australia. And this time it was like vacation with family, because I know everyone on set, we were laughing and having such a great time. So like being in that small of a bikini was, like nothing.
Do you start to look at working out, eating right differently when you're engaged to a professional athlete?
I think it definitely helped how dedicated he is and how seriously he takes it. It's easy to be like, sure, I'll go to the gym with you, I guess.
I guess.
Feels like you're driving. No, but
So you guys work out together, huh?
we work out together, but very separate, because we would get in massive fights.
Why?
Because men and women work out very differently.
Here we go.
Start there.
Go ahead.
And Justin thinks that I should be working out the exact same, and I disagree with him. Because I don't want the same things he wants. I don't need my right arm.
Yeah. You don't have to give your circle change on 2 strike counts. It's not as important as his is. I get that.
Obviously, you guys are going to be planning a wedding. We saw this really fun Instagram. You say it's going great?
Yeah, it's going
not stressful at all. I went through it. You're going to be fine. I saw one Instagram that you sent out that I absolutely loved, and it was basically just a piece of paper. Here we go. Here's your wedding notes. Yes. Fun, party, tequila, food, maybe food if you guys.
Question mark on tequila, though.
Yeah. Well, I think it was more which tequila.
I see.
And what kind of food.
But in descending order, we really know that fun and party is going to be number one.
And the funny thing is, it started off as like serious conversation. We were like, okay, let's take some notes. Let's really decide some things here.
All right, that was SI Swimsuit cover model Kate Upton talking about her upcoming wedding to Tigers ace Justin Verlander. And let's welcome in now one of the most decorated race car drivers of all time, Jimmie Johnson. Jimmie, you've been married since 2004. You also married a supermodel in Chandra Janway. Think back on your wedding. Is there one cautionary tale you have for Verlander and Kate Upton?
No, nothing cautionary, but as everybody knows that have had that great day, it goes by so fast. So trying to figure out some little moments in time to slow it down and just enjoy having your family and friends and that moment that you have together.
Yeah, and hopefully take some good photos along the way so that you can remember those moments.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's talk racing. Now, in the past,
that's all you have in the end is those pictures.
Right? And they're so important. You got to show them to your kids. We should move on to talk racing, though, because, in the past, you've taken some criticism that your dominance, Jimmie, was bad for the sport of racing. Yet, as you're going for your 7th Sprint Cup, you said fans who normally flip you off were cheering for you. So do you think the fans that are now permanently on your side, are they rooting for you to break the tie with Dale Earnhardt Sr. and Richard Petty?
They certainly were in favor of me tying. You know, and there are fans that were Petty and Earnhardt fans that'll never be a Jimmie Johnson fan, and that is totally fine by me. I feel like there was a lot of respect paid to me in the process of trying to tie those two, and then the fact that we did it. So I'm very thankful for that. But the criticism and the stuff you mentioned to start is just crazy. So it's been a fun ride, a wild ride. We have an amazing sport. There's some very interesting and fun changes for this year that I think will really captivate the fans once they get a race or two to watch it. And it all starts this weekend with the Daytona 500.
Yeah, we could talk about some of those changes in a moment, but tell me if you think this is too much of a leap. I know you were in Houston leading up to the Super Bowl. It almost seems like the Patriots went through something similar to you as they were making this historic comeback in that big game. Fans who normally don't cheer for the Pats wanted to see them finish the job. Did you notice that similarity yourself?
You know, I did, and then watching the game, I also felt like the way that they were so far behind at the start of the game, the first half of the game, and then found a way to win, reminded me of our race in Homestead. We were not in contention to win until about 10 laps left in the race, and we didn't have to, and we did actually, I'm sorry, we did go to overtime and extra laps to win the championship. So I watched that and thought the same thing. You know, when you have experience, and certainly they did on the Patriots side a lot like us, we just know that it's never over until the final play or until the final lap. And we kept our composure and were able to stick with it and win as well.
All right, Jimmie, Matt Stryker here, and I can tell you as a pro wrestler, sometimes being the bad guy is a good thing for business, so don't let anybody tell you any differently. But
for sure.
I want to know, if you could go back in time to 2002, what would you tell yourself then?
You know, it's so hard, but because I honestly feel like the driver and person I was then was part of my journey to help me be where I am today. But I was so hyper-focused and so concerned. You know, maybe I didn't enjoy the moments as much as I should have. Maybe I didn't portray the easygoing nature that I am away from the track and fought through some of that in the early days. But I say all that, and again, you know, that's me, that's who I am, and I've had to work really hard to get to where I am. I wasn't a standout as a young driver and an up-and-coming driver, and I had to grind it out to get this chance and get this opportunity, and it's me, it's part of my makeup. But I wish I would have enjoyed some of those, I wish I would have enjoyed more moments along the way, to be honest.
Now, you've won 2 Daytona 500s. As you embark now on this potentially historic season where you're looking for your 8th Sprint Cup Series championship, which number means more to you? Would it be getting that 3rd Daytona 500 win or getting an 8th that would set you apart from all the greatest who have ever done it?
That's tough, but I have to put more weight in the championship department. Chasing history, chasing this 8th championship, I would take that one over the 500.
All right, I can understand that. I mean, listen, It makes a lot of sense. You mentioned before about how
But if I wasn't, I want the 3rd 500 win.
Yeah, we know you want that one too. Well, first things first. You know, you mentioned about how last year, really the beginning of your season was not indicative of how you finished and how you were able to take that Sprint Cup championship. How much would you like to reverse that this year? How much could Daytona set the tone for what could be a historic season?
You know, it's tricky because the restrictor plate racing we do at the Daytona 500, we only do that 4 times a year, twice here in Daytona and twice in Talladega. They're very important races, especially the Talladega race in the fall. It's in the chase, and success there is very important to advance. But the rest of our season and the way we really go about things, we don't have the restrictor plate on our cars. We have the full horsepower, a different set of rules that the cars abide by, and that's really the meat of our season. So in some respects, we look at this as kind of a race that we throw everything at. If you're fortunate enough to win, cool, you're going to ride that wave. If you don't, let's move on and go to the rest of the season. So I feel like every team and every driver is standing in the batter's box looking for the home run. And we're going to swing as hard as we can this weekend as well and see where, if we make contact or not. If we don't, Atlanta's the following weekend, and we'll get to work on the rest of the season.
Jimmie Johnson, always great catching up with you. Good luck this weekend in Daytona. Also, loving the Instagram feed with your 3-year-old straight shredding in the half pipe. That is cool. Talented little kid.
She's amazing. I can't believe what she's doing on skis at 3.
You have very talented offspring. Jimmie Johnson, appreciate your time. Thank you.
Good luck. Be safe.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Another sports personality that's been revving engines as of late is MLB Commissioner Rob Manfred. Now, Manny has managed to create quite a bit of discussion and even raise the ire of many in the baseball world. The commish furthered the issue with some interesting comments. Have a listen.
Unfortunately, it now appears that there really won't be any meaningful change for the 2017 season due to a lack of cooperation from the MLBPA. I've tried to be clear that our game is fundamentally sound, that it does not need to be fixed, as some people have suggested. I have to admit, however, that I'm disappointed that we could not even get the MLBPA to agree to modest rule changes like limits on trips to the mound that have little effect on the competitive character of the game. I believe it's a mistake to stick our head in the sand and ignore the fact that our game has changed and continues to change.
All right, Rob Manfred coming in hot. What'd you take away from his comments?
First of all, he sounds like a whiny child that didn't get what he wants. I was expecting him to hold his breath and jump up and down. And also, he's burying the MLBPA, and he's talking out of both sides of his mouth. In one breath, he says, oh, the game is perfect, doesn't need to be changed, but here are some changes I'd like. So I can see why a lot in the baseball world are upset with Rob Manfred.
I think people are looking at this as good leadership from Manfred, but I agree with you that I don't understand why take this kind of tone. First of all, he has the unilateral power to make any changes he wants anyways.
That's
so
a problem.
If he wants next season, he can put all of these changes in terms of strike zone, in terms of innings, limits to the mound,
pitchers and
all of these things, I should say conferences on the mound. All of these things he can do anyway. So why set this tone? Baseball has gone through 4 major strikes, lockouts, labor disputes. I mean, this is going to take a little more of a gentle touch, don't you think?
Yeah, and I also think it's a bad time to be in a position of authority in anything in society, but especially with sports. We see the commissioner of the NBA constantly getting berated. We see that the NHL commissioner gets his fair share of flack. So I think that Manfred is almost falling in line here, but I disagree with a lot of the changes that he wants to make based on the reasons why.
Okay, what are some of the changes that you don't like?
Okay, most of the changes involve the timing of the game, pace of play, and honestly, I played baseball. Baseball is about timing. Pitchers want to disrupt hitters' timing, and statistics show that pitchers that move at a slower pace have more success. So I think a lot of these things here, you're messing with the intricacies. And to top it all off, it's in the song we sing in the 7th inning, right? I don't care if I ever get back. Let the game play out. You want to sing it with me?
No, I don't. You have pretty good pipes there. I don't.
But these are the reasons why I take just a slight bit of umbrage with what the commissioner is trying to do.
Okay, I think that you and I agree that we think the commissioner is a little bit coming in a little too hot, a little bit out of line. I disagree, though. I think that changes do need to be made. I mean, I'm never so much of a purist that I feel like you can stand by the argument the way we've always done it is the reason why we should do it in the future. I mean, the audience is changing. I mean, if you have people with shorter attention spans, if you want to try to put the ball in play more often so that you're seeing more action, I have no problem with that whatsoever. I mean, there have been changes being made to our favorite sports for years. You know, it's not like it's the 10 Commandments where they're written in stone. You can try things out, and then you can make adjustments on the fly. I like that Rob Manfred says we don't want to put our head in the sand and we don't want to let the game pass us by. We need to be proactive. I just don't understand why he can't be negotiating with the Players Association instead of coming out with language like saying, I'm disappointed, and I feel like this is this is something the PA is being unreasonable about.
I don't think that rhetoric helps the commissioner push forward what it is that he's trying to do. But again, I still say do not mess with the timing of a game that is based on timing.
I mean, it doesn't honestly matter, because Rob Manfred can make the decision he wants eventually anyway. So If he wants to change the rules, he can change the rules.
All right,
We're powerless.
We are married to rules, and one of those rules is time, so we are all out of it. That's going to do it for this edition of SI Now.
Thank you, Matt. We will be back tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Eastern with a fresh look at all the latest sports news. But until then, stick with SI.com, and don't forget to follow us on Twitter at SI Now Live. I'll see you tomorrow.
James drove his RAV4 hybrid, unaware death was lurking. What? He was challenged by a team of lumberjacks.
Let's do this.
He would drive them to Hard Knocks Canyon, where he would risk broken legs, losing limbs, and slipping and dying.
Not helping.
But death would have to wait. James left with newfound knowledge, a man's gratitude, and his shirt. How far will you take the all-new RAV4 hybrid? Toyota, let's go places.